So, welcome back to another Half and Half Scarf football podcast with me, Nick, and my mate Dom. Two Borough fans, and Dom also a season ticket holder at Everton by geography and history, but he wouldn't be seen dead in a half and half scarf. It's an ironic title for the podcast, not that we condone anything half and half of any type. For those who've not listened before, we like to look at observations on what's happening in the season. We have specialist topics from time to time, occasional guests, etc. We're just two match-going fans who have opinions on things, and we see stuff maybe that you see, don't see, would have an opinion or a viewpoint on. And this is episode 34. And in episode 32 and 33, we've done observations on the season so far over recent weeks, probably since the transfer window and Champions League's finished and all that kind of thing. And because the list keeps getting longer, we're going to do another episode today. So we'll have three in a row on our observations on the season over recent weeks, which happens to be the DNA of what we do when it comes to our audience figures and interaction. So we're happy with that. But next week we'll do a special subject. We might have a guest coming on a week or two down the line. So please feel free to your podcast as well as listeners and viewers to interact with us, ask us questions, challenge us for our views, and get involved. So, without further ado, introduce you to Dom. And for those who've not been on this before, we're on YouTube and we discuss the shirts that we're wearing very briefly, and then we get into it. So, Dom, England shirt. You've got two England shirts, haven't you? That's the second one you've worn on the podcast, yeah?
I've got a couple of nice Umbro ones that I really love. My absolute favourite I've worn before, which was from 2010. Just a beautiful, beautiful thing. This is the 12-13 incarnation. Quite like this one. It's the time when we had like an all-white kit, all white with red, which is very traditional England flaggish, isn't it? You know, I know that we have a lot of England kits with blue, which I love, by the way.
Yeah.
But this was very kind of just England flag style, all in red, white shorts, white socks. I was a fan of this one. I quite liked it. So I've not dragged this out. I think it's the first time I've worn this ever.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think it's fairly ironic that the shirt's lovely, but the team of that time was shit. So
weren't
anyway,
good. Yeah, we did struggle quite a bit in that time.
was that the Roy Hodgson era, or just about, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I think it was the onset of the Roy Hodgson era. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. I'm wearing for those who are watching. I'm wearing Borough's current third kit, which is used for away kits very often, in honour of the fact that we're recording this on Sunday the 1st of February, which is going to go out on Monday the 9th of February. In Middlesbrough, I've got two massive games coming up, both away from home, both on consecutive Monday nights. So we're away tonight, as this has been sent out, at Sheffield United at Bumhole Lane. Sorry if I pronounced that right. And secondly, next Monday, we're away at Coventry in a massive game as it stands at the moment. So I love this shirt. It's been pretty lucky a couple of times and been unlucky a couple of times. Not going to do superstitions. That's a separate subject. But yeah, a lot going on. I love the shirt. I love yours. Let's get on to the actual content, because our audience who don't watch on YouTube are all sat there going, what are these two clowns talking about?
Yeah.
But we just, so let's move on. As we speak, literally as we are recording, I've got a notification through, which is that Watford head coach Javi Gracia resigned after a board meeting following the defeat at home to Swansea. Javi Gracia was appointed Watford boss for a second spell in October. Spaniard had called for the meeting with the owner Gino Pozzo over transfers and ambitions. Watford say they are sad and disappointed in a statement, adding that Gracia no longer had the motivation for the job. Now, I'm not being funny. I think he was doing a great job, by the way, and I thought Watford were really not just dark horses, but really in the mix for playoffs at least. And they played some decent football. He was appointed in October. He's lasted probably longer than most Watford managers have, because we're at the end of January, beginning of February now. But
3 months, that's a long time in Watford. That's like decades as a Watford manager. 3 months.
They are the gift that keeps on giving out. There's a club, that Pozzo guy who runs it, he's obviously just a clown, isn't he? I mean, I know he's probably a massively successful businessman with billions in the bank and all that. Good luck to him. Couldn't run a battle, let alone a football club, as far as I can see. And, to lose the manager who's turned them into a really decent championship, force to be reckoned with potentially, and to lose him because you don't want to back him in the transfer window. It's actually on you, Pot. So it's not on Javi Gracia. I think he's a good manager, and I think he's proven again he's a
Yeah.
decent manager at this level.
I mean,
Watford.
he's back. He's back there for what? Is it the 10th time as manager, something like that? I mean, but I think when he's gone before, he's been unfairly sacked, and I think it kind of seems a bit tongue in cheek. Isn't it bizarre that the one time when people aren't actually talking about Watford sacking a manager, and it actually feels quite settled, and fans are perhaps getting behind it, and he was doing well because they were consistently in every game, weren't they?
Yeah,
Not perfect, but building something. He obviously wanted to go back and help, and they wanted him. So why wouldn't you give him some support? If he's calling a meeting and he's not happy with something, I'm not
yeah,
saying managers are always right, but surely he's unhappy about something. So surely you try and find some common ground. But
yeah.
the fact that they clearly haven't, because he's felt the need to resign. So once again, it becomes about Watford's managerial merry-go-round, and to say, "Oh, we're disappointed he didn't, want to stick it out," is like, come on.
Yeah.
Jesus, that's pot calling the kettle black, isn't it? Really. So it's like perhaps a bit of payback for what you do to all the managers out there.
I'm just wondering which three managers will take place at Watford between now and May, because obviously, they last about 6 weeks each, don't they? So there'll be three managers. I mean, we read a list out once, didn't we, on the podcast of managers who've been, and it was. I mean, some of them we'd completely forgotten. So, Slaviša Jokanovic, he must be due a return, mustn't he? Because he'll be there next
Yeah.
and whatever. So they've now run out of managers. They're now going back to people who've previously employed. Chris Wilder, he did a little spell there. So while we're on the subject of Chris Wilder, and we're on the subject of Sheffield United, as I was earlier, I just want to say, as part of the podcast, is observation on the season so far. I'm disappointed that Patrick Bamford was sent off 2 weeks ago, because it means he doesn't miss the game against Middlesbrough tonight as this goes out. He got 2 yellow cards, and Patrick, your dive for your second yellow card was as embarrassing as it was awkward. Paddy Bamford, I know it was your first time you've ever been sent off. What an absolute disgrace of a dive. It was embarrassing. Shame on you, Paddy Bamford. Now, the only thing I say about that is the bastard's got a habit of scoring against us. So I was hoping he would get sent off last weekend so he couldn't play on Monday night as it stands. But he'll be back, and he'll be playing against Middlesbrough, and no doubt he'll be up to his tricks. But the dive, I don't know if you saw the dive, did you, Dom? Honestly, it was Tom Daly.
Yeah,
Tom Daly.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
And I'm glad he got pulled up for it as well, because, sometimes they don't. And yet, I'm always a bit miffed when referees don't fall for it, but then don't give anything for it. It's like, well, if you're not falling for it, it's clearly a blatant dive. So you should be pulling him up for it. So I'm glad he was pulled up for it, to be honest, because
Yeah.
a lot of it goes on. Yeah, he's a bit embarrassing, Bamford, at times, isn't he? He's makes himself look a bit of a fool. But
Yeah.
massive game, that and the Coventry game are huge in Borough's season. So they could be season defining games, those two. I mean, a lot can happen after that, but if we were to get through and get two really good, say we were to win both games, I mean, that is like,
Wow.
we're properly on it. We really
Yeah.
are.
Absolutely. Anyway, moving on from that, let's talk about some recent games in the Championship. I want to talk about QPR versus Wrexham as a starting point, and then I want to bookend it with QPR beating Coventry the week after. QPR were leading Wrexham 2-1 at home after 91 minutes, and then Wrexham scored two brilliant goals, one of which wasn't celebrated, actually. What do they call him? Whose dad used to play? Can't remember his bloody. I had a mental block about his name now. The lad who used to play for Sheffield Wednesday, the striker. He's anyway. It'll come to me. He scored to equalise. So Wrexham, good away following. QPR, it's a really good stadium. When QPR scored, they're giving it the beams. It's a proper atmosphere. So QPR 2-1 up. Wrexham get an equaliser, and their fans are ecstatic, thinking they're going to go. Josh Windass is his name, by the way. Sorry, I just remembered it. So Windass scores, didn't really celebrate, bizarrely, but 92nd minute equaliser, and you're thinking, well, brilliant, well done. And then Ollie Rathbone, who's a out and out Wrexham legend, smashes an absolute belter past the keeper, and I thought the scenes, the limbs, the radio commentary by the Wrexham BBC radio commentary guy, if you've not listened to it, just put Wrexham commentary QPR winner. It's sensational. The guy offers Ollie Rothborn, his children, he's like so excited about the 3-2 win. A great away day. Now, the limbs, the scenes, the jumping around, I mean, it's brilliant. That's what football's about, right? So I want listeners and viewers to tell us about their best turnaround, particularly at an away game, but it could be a home game. Coming back from 2-1 down dead and buried to win 3-2 away, it both goals in injury time, quite rare, really. And the best away day limbs. I'm going to throw in recent years Middlesbrough. We were away at Blackpool a couple of seasons ago. It was in December. It was between December and between Christmas and New Year. Bloody peeing down and freezing at Blackpool. We were 1-0 up, quite deservedly. Second half, Blackpool actually got back into it, and we hung on and hung on. And Blackpool went up our end and scored in the 91st minute for a 1-all equaliser. And like you completely deflated, literally from the kickoff. We pushed the ball, pushed the ball out, banged it into the middle, and Duncan Watmore sort of gets across his man and puts it in. So we'd gone from 1-all to 2-1 again, winning in the 93rd, 94th minute. We had a 3,500 sellout away fans. I mean, I ended up 4 rows in front of me. We were hugging strangers as you do. It was just great fun because of the jeopardy of coming back from 1-all. And that lives in the memory. I mean, it didn't mean anything in the scheme of the season particularly, but we had a win away at Blackpool. And it was just the manner of which it happened. And, you know, I just thought the QPR Wrexham game was one of them moments. If you're a Wrexham fan, you'd go, whatever happens to the season, whether you make the playoffs or you do better or don't quite, if you were there, you'll always have that game.
You just remember them. Especially the manner of it when it literally is virtually the last kick of the game and it's an absolute screamer.
Yeah.
You know, to be 2-1 up, home team in added time, and then to lose, it's absolutely brutal. But for the away team, it is just different level stuff. Especially when you've travelled all the way down to London as well, and it's a long way. Yeah, and and when it's a really good goal as well, it just caps everything off. And like you said, I totally agree. It's moments again. It doesn't have to mean anything. It doesn't have to be integral to your season. It's just you go into every match really on an isolated basis. So you know sometimes what it's leading to, and if you're on a good run, but you treat every match on its merit because you know it could be either amazing or it could be an abject day and a long journey home. So that's football. So yeah, that will live long in the memory for years and years and years, and they'll be able to talk about it. So I totally agree. Yeah.
But what I would like to do as a Borough fan is thank QPR, because this weekend, just the weekend after that, because that must hurt. You know, you're 2-1 up at home, and they're on the brink of the playoffs themselves. They've lost to a playoff rival, and they've come back this week and they're 1-0 down against Coventry, top of the league. Coventry. I know they've struggled recently, and their away form's particularly a bit dodgy. QPR came back in that game. There weren't late goals particularly. There were 70 odd minutes or whatever, and QPR won 2-1. So they've reversed that. So they've obviously got a bit of resilience about them to do that, haven't they? You know, because it was very easy to have your heads go when you're 1-0 down against a team at the top of the league, having suffered what you suffered the week before. So hats off to QPR for being resilient. But let us know what your best memories are of turnarounds and last minute bangers and just scenes and limbs, really, because it's always great, great fun if you're there. And I travel a lot away with Rob and Julie and various others. And, you know, when we do that kind of thing, which is, as I've said, rare, it just lives in the memory. What, you know, West Brom away, you know, scenes and limbs in the away end at that one, for example. But sadly, Rob and myself and Dom weren't there. We were watching it in our house. Dom was a guest for the weekend, and we watched it. There were scenes and limbs in our front room, but it wasn't quite the same as being in the away end. Anyway, right, moving on. What's your thought? Have you got any that live in the memory, Dom?
I think my most recent one is an away day I had. I went and I think it was a Monday night, actually. It was a Monday night game going back about 10 years. It was still in Lukaku's era, and we were 2-0 down at West Brom. We came back and won 3-2. And if memory serves, I think Lukaku got a hat-trick. That was a really nice day because, you know, it was one I'd managed to get tickets to last minute. I'm not quite sure why I went on a Monday. And then I was, you know, you're there thinking, oh, Christ, we're playing terribly. 2 really poor goals.
Yeah.
And it's always special when you come back from 2-0 down and win a game 3-2. And it was just a really great game. Exactly the same feeling when you think a game's dead and buried and The second half is just, a completely different game. It's like two separate games of football. So I think that's
Yeah.
the last one I remember being away. I've had a few of those at home matches, Borough and Everton, but that's
Mm.
the last away game I remember going to where we looked dead and buried and came back and won. So yeah, that was pretty special.
I do recall the last derby for you as an Everton fan at Goodison with Liverpool. I know you didn't win, but that last minute equaliser
Oh, that
would have
was
been
brilliant.
would have been
Yeah,
sensational as well.
it
That
was.
felt like a win.
Yeah, it was just nice not to lose, so that um, bragging rights in terms of the fact that if Liverpool had won that, I think they'd have had one more derbies at Goodison than we would have done. So they're small
Yeah,
little
yeah,
things, but they do matter.
they
But I
do.
think it was just the fact that Liverpool and their fans were convinced they'd won the game, and it's like it's
Mm.
never done until it's done. And also, as I've said before on this pod, just the fucking idiots who leave the ground because they just spit their dummies and can't sit still for 45 minutes plus added time. And
Yeah,
I remember telling him there was a guy that was interviewed as he was walking out. He was a good 200 meters away from the ground, and someone interviewed him. He said, "What do you think?" He said, "I knew we'd lose it. You didn't. It was a draw, and you've just missed it." And his face was a pitch. It's like, well, that's why you don't leave games early.
yeah, exactly.
Exactly like the away fans going all the way down to Brighton yesterday and Everton scoring in the 97th minute. That's why you don't decide to
Yeah,
spit your dummy and leave early. If you've travelled
yeah,
all that way, just watch the
yeah,
game because you never know what might happen. And I've
yeah.
seen it so many times when people leave the ground and they miss comebacks. So yeah, that was a good one. But I didn't include that because it was a home game. But it
Yeah,
was
yeah.
it was brilliant. It was a really good atmosphere that night. It was fabulous.
Well, let's look at how professional this segue is going to be, Don. We've been doing this for a while now. This is a
Yes.
professional segue. Listen to this, right? You mentioned Brighton, and I heard yesterday that Everton have got a really good record against Brighton in recent years. I remember you won there 4 or 5-0 the other season, totally unexpectedly, didn't you? But you got a good record at Brighton. Would
At
that be
their
fair?
place, yeah.
Yeah.
At home, we had a terrible record until we put that to bed this season. So yeah,
Which takes me into the segue, which
yeah,
was, do bogey teams and bogey grounds exist? So I'm going to give you some examples of why this came to fruition, right? Okay. So Middlesbrough will do bogey teams for and bogey teams and bogey grounds against, okay? So Blackburn, who, let's face it, for the last 10 years have been bang average and abject, thereabouts, or somewhere between the two, have never lost at the Riverside since 2013, okay? We cannot beat them at the Riverside. We played them over Christmas and it was 0-0. It would still be 0-0 if we played today, to be fair. It was a shocking game of football, but we never beat Blackburn at home. No reason why we shouldn't. We're a miles better side than they are this season. Couldn't beat them. But we nearly always win at Ewood Park. So that's a weird one. Bristol City and Coventry. We never beat Bristol City home or away for some reason. I went to Bristol City the weekend before Christmas. If we'd have scored first, which we had plenty of chances to do, we'd have absolutely won that game. Simply, we didn't. We lost in the end, and that was a long way back. Coventry have got the hex over us, home and away. We haven't beaten them for about 5 or 6 seasons, and boy, do they love mentioning that, right? So next Monday, as this podcast goes out, we're playing Coventry. As it stands, we're in fantastic form, and they're in pretty abject form, although their home form is still as good as any in the division. It's going to be a big game. Rob and I are driving down to Coventry, knowing it's a bogey ground, thinking at some point that bogey ground hoodoo's got to go. And then you get to the fact that Preston North End, this is weird, right? We've beaten Preston the last 6 seasons. This season we got a draw. We'd lost the 5 before that at Deepdale. We cannot get a win at Deepdale for love nor money. We beat them 4-0 last week before at the Riverside, the second time in a row that we thrashed them 4-0 at the Riverside. So we can't win at Deepdale and we thrashed them at the Riverside. And the last one is West Brom and Norwich. Can we play you every week, please? Because we beat West Brom and we beat Norwich home and away all the time. I don't think either of them have beaten us for the last 5 seasons, home or away. Norwich keep mentioning Wembley. It was 10 years ago, get over it. We win at Carrow Road and we win at the Riverside against Norwich every season. We beat West Brom at the Hawthorns. We beat West Brom at the Riverside every season. But Bristol City, Blackburn, Preston at Deepdale,
yeah. And
bogey
Coventry,
grounds
they
and
are,
bogey
yeah,
teams. Do they exist? I mean, is it a
yeah, they
thing?
do. I think. Do you know what? I think it is something that you build up in your head. It's definitely a thing. It's definitely something I think about with Borough and Everton because it's the same thing. like Everton couldn't go to Bournemouth for several years and win a game of football. We put that to bed this season. For the
Yeah.
last probably 5 6 years, so either side of Aston Villa's brief relegation, we couldn't go to Villa Park and win. We put that to bed this season, which is strange. Never used to do well at Palace either. And so sometimes these can feel like bogey grounds, even though when you look back on it, it might only be like a feeling of it's just the last 5 or 6 years. Spurs, we never ever do well there, ever. I think we won there in lockdown season, but apart from that, and I think lockdown was exceptional in many ways, but apart from the lockdown season, we never win at Spurs, ever.
Just on Spurs, I do recall that at one point, I think Chelsea had the hex over Spurs, and I think Spurs hadn't beaten Chelsea in a league game for something like 15 seasons or something.
It's a long time.
Like, what? How does that happen that a team, when we get Blackburn at home, irrespective of how bad Blackburn are, I just thought this season, well, we're going to beat Blackburn. We're flying at the top of the league and Blackburn as shit as ever. And it was like just 0-0. It was like, oh, yeah, okay, that because we didn't beat, it was Blackburn, wasn't it? We were never going to win. And Bristol City, we drove to Bristol City thinking, well, we're in good form. They're a good side. It's a bogey team, but surely. And we played really well for the first 20 minutes, and then you lose. And you're thinking,
it's every season, but the thing, this is why I think it is a thing, because going back to the Spurs thing, we struggled for 12 years to beat them at home. We finally put that to bed last season. But prior to that, we hadn't beat them at home for 12 seasons.
Yeah.
So you could argue that is a bit of a hex, because 12 years is a long time.
Yeah.
Liverpool, you could argue Liverpool, we put that to bed 2 years ago. But prior to that, we hadn't beaten them at home for 13 years. So
madness.
There definitely is teams that you do favour playing, and teams that
I'd like to know,
result against.
I'd love our audience to get involved and tell us A, who you support, and B, who do you like playing because you always beat them. And you know what? If you are Bristol City or Coventry, don't bother. We already know. But no, I'm only joking. Or Blackburn. But who do you like playing? Because I don't mind seeing West Brom and Norwich on the fixture list, because historically, recent seasons, we've always won over the way.
Yeah, we have.
But who do you support? Who's your team that you love playing because you always beat them or never lose? And are the grounds that you go to and teams that you play home and away, or home or away, that you dread? And Bristol City's one of them. We still got to play Bristol City, the Riverside, in March. And it's like, irrespective of what form they're in and we're in, it's still Bristol City, the Riverside, and we never beat them. I think we've beaten them the last 4 or 5 seasons at the Riverside. So it's still a fear, isn't it?
That's more of a hex than the Coventry. That feels more of a hex than the Coventry one, because it's literally year after year after year. And they always come to our place and do a number on us. Yeah. So it is a bit of a worry, because that's in March, and hopefully we might be cruising by then, but I'm not so sure we will, because it's a brutal league. So they could come and put the skids on us, and that 3 points in March when they play us, it is about time we beat them. I mean, to be honest, they got absolutely thumped by Derby at home the other night, 5-0. But we can never ever go there and do well. And they always fancy it when they come to our. There must be something in it when teams know they do well on a certain ground. And I think part of it feeling like a hex is the home teams also know, especially if you've got quite a few players that have played in a few. It's strange how, even though sometimes when you have personnel that changes around, so you think, oh, it's not the same because it's different players, it still has a hoodoo about it. It's the Bristol City one's worse than the Coventry one for Borough. It's just the Coventry one's getting like that, but I think that's become more because we've had quite a bit of a rivalry with them over the last few years.
I think the reason
that comes from.
Yeah, the Coventry one seems more important because we've had more important games like playoff games and playoff qualification games and end of season games, all that kind of thing. Now, I'm just hoping that when this goes out, we're a week away, that the hex gets broken on the 16th of Feb, because on that Monday night, if we can go to Coventry and win, or not lose, but win, ideally win, that's a marker that says we've broken a hoodoo, bring the rest of the season on, bring the other 14 games on, because if we can win at Coventry, we can win anywhere. But then we play Bristol City on the 13th of March and we think, right, okay, let's just beat them as well, or not lose to them. So I'm really intrigued as to what other fans think about, teams, good or bad, Hex, or you've got the Hex over them, hoodoos, bogey grounds, places you go to as an away fan thinking, well, we never win here. And you go with a bit of a heavy heart. Because conversely, when we're in the Premier League or we play in the FA Cup, Middlesbrough have got as good a record against Man United as many teams who are established Premier League teams.
Yeah,
We've got a great record at Old Trafford and against Man United. What's that about? How does that work? And we're also the only club to have played Man City more than twice that Pep Guardiola has never beaten. We beat them in the FA Cup and we were unbeaten in the 2 games we played them in the Premier League when we were in the Premier League last. So, Man City couldn't beat us in their prime 3 times. We're Middlesbrough. How does that work? We can't beat Bristol City. We can't beat Blackburn at home. We get thrashed at Deepdale every year. But Man United and Man City bring it on. And when we get promoted, we'll do the double over both of them. Anyway, let's see how that goes. I'm just intrigued if it's a thing. We're going to do an episode at some point in the future about sort of superstitions because it's a big subject, football superstitions. Footballers themselves and fans, I've got a few which I want to share with you at that point. So yeah, let's move on from that. I think it's an interesting subject though, the bogey grounds and bogey teams, Dom. I think we're
definitely it's an absolute thing, yeah. And it's or teams that notoriously you're never going to really turn up and play well against, home or away.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned in Man City, Everton's record against them is absolutely torrid, home and away.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, the last time we beat them was that same season, Pep's first season, 2016. Yeah. We thumped them 4-0. Since then, it's just been seriously painful, home and away.
Yeah.
Awful.
You can throw Leeds into the Middlesbrough one as well. I always have trepidation when we play Leeds as well, so that's another thing.
We only ever play well against Leeds in the Cup. We never play well against them in the league at Ellen Road, ever.
No, that's fair. Okay, now, couple of things. As we record this, we are on the last but one day of the winter transfer window. And it's been brilliant to watch over the weekend, the amount of mystery illnesses and injuries that players have had. The one that you can't prove is the bad back. I've got a bad back, I'm not available. Josh Sargent's not made himself available. What they call the guy up front for Palace, Mateta. Is it Mateta?
Yeah.
Adam Armstrong at Southampton, who's heavily linked with Middlesbrough or Wrexham, and also Cameron Archer, who's been linked with Rangers. Funny enough, not in the squad on match day on the Saturday before the end of the transfer window, with little knocks, niggly injuries and whatever. I'd love to know in your club who has been hankering for a move or been talked about for a move, who mysteriously didn't play at the weekend with 2 days left, because I think that's just amazing, really, that happens. And it's almost predictable, isn't it? You see people who've been heavily linked with someone. I could have guaranteed that Adam Armstrong was not going to play for Southampton this weekend, just gone, because he's been in the press all week that he might be coming to Middlesbrough, he might be going to Wrexham, but he certainly wasn't going to be playing for Southampton at the weekend. And funnily enough, they announced he had a minor injury, a small niggle. Of course they did.
Yeah. Just come out and say that as a club you don't want to play because you want to protect the player because there's a chance they're going to leave. Just come out and say and be honest. And just say that you don't want there to be an injury because it's likely this player's going to leave and you want to recoup some money. Just be honest. Fans aren't stupid. It's a bit like these idiots who feign that they've got cramp midway through a first half, or Joe Linton doing his usual thing for Newcastle of suddenly going down like he's been floored when there's no one near him. And he takes 10 minutes out of the game, which it's we all know why it's happening. We're not stupid, but no one seems to want to do anything about it.
Well, I've got a great observation, again, from Simon Jennison, who's a regular contributor to the pod, on that subject, really. Again, segue, professional. Why do players only seem to get cramp when they're 1-0 up late in the game? He said because it's very strange but true that you never seem to get cramp when you're 1-0 down or you're chasing the game. It's always when you're protecting a lead. Mystery illnesses in football, Simon. I have observed that many times, but I don't know the answer because I'm not a medic. I don't know. It seems genuine. It seems absolutely legit and not sus at all, Simon.
Yeah. And what I hate even more is when that said player is doing it and taking the piss. One of the players on the opposing team actually goes and helps them, and it's like, no, just fucking leave them the fuck alone.
Yeah.
Just ignore them. They'll soon get up and get on with the game. They're just taking the piss.
I know. If it's not a head injury, don't stop the game, do you? But these days they do. They're supposed to keep the game flowing. The amount of times I've seen this season where someone goes down, the referee glances and has a look and goes, well, he's all right. And then they play on, and the player stays down. And the referee goes, I'm going to have to stop the game. Well, you're not, are you? Because his leg's not hanging off. It's not a head injury. There's no blood. Play on. They'll soon get up if they're playing with 10 men and a guy sat in his arse, won't they? But good observation, Simon. I don't know why it's always cramped when you're 1-0 up and not 1-0 down. So I don't know why that is, but a great thought process.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cheers, Simon. And hello to Michelle as well, by the way, I should say. Your better half. Your better half.
On the transfer thing, it was interesting as well how, I know this is Middlesbrough centric, but we were all amused as fans recently when there was rumour going around that Delano Bergzorg was going to join Bristol City, and apparently he'd liked it or put a love heart next to it on social media, which was a bit like awkward.
Yeah.
In fairness, he went on to score a goal for us against West Brom after he'd done it and stuff, but you were kind of thinking, well, that clearly means something. And then, isn't it strange how yesterday he joins Bristol City on loan with an option to buy? And again, I am gonna touch wood, but that's another reason why I'm uncomfortable about the March fixture. It's like, is it the same? I can't remember in the Championship. Is it the same as the Premier League where lone players can't play against parent clubs?
He can't play against us. Having said that, I'm a bit disappointed because he is shit. Now, what I would say about Delano Bergzorg, I'm sorry we nearly started recording this podcast late because I was driving him to Bristol because that's what I would have happily done. Because despite the fact that he scored a late winner at West Brom, he scored 2 goals in 25 games, couldn't hit a camel's arse with a banjo. I'm surprised he didn't get injured stepping over his suitcase and then stepping over it again and then trying to step over it and go around it twice before he did anything with his suitcase, like picking it up. Delano Bergzorg, good luck at Bristol City. Never want to see you in a Borough shirt again. Hope the obligation to buy kicks in immediately because we don't want you back. And I don't care what fans say, we might miss him. The guy is an absolute liability. So that's my view. And I don't know if that's been absolutely crystal clear what I think of Delano Bergzorg there, Dom. I don't know. Has it?
Do you know what I thought last season under Carrick when he came? And I was even surprised we've only had him 18 months. It feels like we've had him longer, strangely. But when he first came in, he was extremely greedy. He was all about himself. And then once that was snapped out of him and he became a team player, he actually was pretty good.
No, I think the word you're looking for. The word you're looking for after that, he actually was less shit. That's it.
That'd be nice, but yeah, I saw some merit in some of the stuff that he did, but it's telling that he has fallen down the pecking order quite a lot, and the fact that the club obviously want to bring in more players, as a player, don't you, that your time's done.
Yeah.
So he'll have known that as well. So he knows he's going to get less and less game time, pure and simple.
You're not getting promoted with Delano Bergzorg in your front line. That's all I'll say. Okay.
No, I don't think you are.
I've got another thank you for another listener and observer, Big Ian Donaghy, who's a great guy based in York. He's from the North East originally, although I will have to qualify the fact that he is a Newcastle fan. He's from Towlaw, up in the middle of nowhere in County Durham. So, he was probably lonely as a child and thought, I'll follow Newcastle because everybody else does. So, anyway, he's a great guy. He's Big Ian Donaghy. Thank you for this, Ian. This is outrageous, right? He sent me a copy of a tweet from Piers Morgan. Now, first of all, let's not go there. Piers Morgan is a divisive figure, but he's a big, big Arsenal fan.
Yeah.
And he's absolutely up his own arse when it comes to Arsenal, this and Arsenal that, and Arteta this and Arteta that. But Piers Morgan tweeted, this is the best, and best was in capitals, Arsenal squad ever. And I think that, I think this is the best Arsenal squad ever, even better than that available to Arsene Wenger. Right, so imagine if Arteta had Ian Wright, Henry, Bergkamp, Keown, Campbell, Vieira, Pires, Overmars, Anelka, Lundberg, Wiltord, Tony Adams available. How many of the current Arsenal team or squad would get anywhere near a team that included that level of talent? Any of those players would walk into the current Arsenal team and transform it. He's an absolute disgrace. He's one of these typical, and he's a journalist apparently, Piers Morgan, or just a twat. Anyway, Piers Morgan, should know better. He's living in recency bias. Arsenal are doing okay, but they've won nothing. And the quality of the players that have been listed there is just chalk and cheese to the team he's got now. You're not telling me that any of those players wouldn't walk into the Arsenal squad now. I don't think that Victor Gyökeres would keep Righty out the team. I don't know. Am I wrong? I
No,
don't.
God, no,
Yeah,
no, God. Ian Wright had such brilliant movement. I mean, he was much more of a box player, 18 yard,
yeah,
6 yard box. He was never a Lineker. He was, I'm not trying to do Gary a disservice here, but he had more about his game than that. I mean, he could
yeah,
make a goal for himself, but he had more flair and movement than Gyökeres has. I was looking at it's a really interesting thing this you brought up that Ian raised, and I was really thinking about it, thinking even players I really like in the Arsenal team, like Declan Rice and Bukayo Saka, I think they really struggled to get in that team because
yeah.
I mean they had just such amazing talent all over the pitch. I'm thinking, just is Saka better than the likes of Perez, Wiltord, and all those players that
Over
play out
Mars.
wide and come in? I'm not really sure he is, and I really like him as a player. By the way, I think he's a
Yeah.
terrific talent, and I really like Declan Rice. And I think Arsenal have really good talented players. And the one thing that they are good at, which reminds me of the Invincibles, is they're so good on the ball. They hold the ball well. They're brilliant in possession. They can play it really quickly. But
Mm.
that doesn't mean that would any of those. If you had the choice of that Invincibles team and the team now, I think you'd always pick the Invincibles team. As much as you like some of their players and just the style of how they played, they were a bit safe sometimes. When we were
Mm.
talking off air, you can forget sometimes that they did draw quite a lot of games, but when they were on it, it was just something else to watch.
But I still think controversially the Invincibles weren't even Arsenal's best incarnation. I think the team from sort of 97, 98, 99, that team were better than the Invincibles team. Personally, I think the Wenger's first double winning team
Yeah,
was sensational. However, it doesn't really matter. What we're trying to say here is recency bias from people who should know better. And Piers Morgan's been watching Arsenal for years. How can he write such absolute guff that Arsenal's current team are the best Arsenal incarnation ever? Absolute bullshit. None of them are getting near the proper teams of Arsenal of the past. And worse than that, by the way, Piers Morgan, they've won fuck all.
you'd like him to quantify it, wouldn't you? So I'd because normally Piers Morgan is quite good at he'll quantify and explain why he thinks something. So going slightly off tangent, but he'll say things that he doesn't like about Donald Trump, but then he'll say things that I do like about him, is he's good at doing X, Y, and Z. So he'll try and
Yeah.
quantify and explain why he thinks that. I'm surprised with a comment like that, why he hasn't, given it a bit of detail.
Context.
So
Yeah.
context. So maybe he thinks, or maybe he's coming at it that Arsenal win more games with this team, because they probably do. Then maybe they're more consistent in terms of how much they're winning compared to, they didn't with the Invincibles.
Maybe people are. He's not getting as much coverage as he wants for various things. He thought I'd just do something controversial,
Maybe.
and people like us that talk about it. But anyway, moving on from that.
But I think recency bias is the thing, though, isn't it? Because I think, especially for a lot of youngsters as well, and I think I get a bit concerned with recency bias and recency bias. I have to say it correctly. Because I think when you're young, I'm always saying to my daughters, I'll go back and look at these teams from the past. It's important to know, what was around 10 years ago, 20, 30, 40. You see it on social media all the time, people putting these ridiculous posts. Like I saw something, with Ravanelli at Middlesbrough's best striker. Not in a million fucking years.
Jesus Christ, wouldn't be the top 10.
Yeah, there was life before the Premier League. And, I had to spell out to someone that George Campbell was and still is Borough's highest goal scorer and was an unbelievable player, which is why there's a statue outside the ground of him, which gives you the answer you need. So you don't need to put that nonsense on social media because it's just irrelevant. He was there for a season. So he wasn't the greatest. And even the season he was there, he hardly scored any goals. So it's like,
no, he did. He scored 30 goals in a struggling team, but he scored a lot of them in league cups and cups and stuff.
That's what I mean.
I
know it's a high amount of goals. I'm probably being disrespectful, but it was one season, and he also had a lot of support from a lot of got brilliant players who gave
He
him
did.
those goals,
He
whereas
did.
Campbell was a different beast altogether.
And Brian Clough.
I think the point I'm making though is I think it's good that people should look at the histories of their club and look at the richness of what teams they had in the past, and not just be so focused on what is going on now.
Let's throw another big giant global club into the mix, okay? Man United, right? Okay. Fernandes, you're a big fan of Fernandes. I can't get past the fact he's a little rat-faced little so-and-so, and he just annoys me when I watch him. But he's a really good footballer, right?
He's
a good footballer. And if you're picking a Premier League midfield over the last 5 years, you'd put Fernandes in there probably. Let's not get into that debate, but he's definitely up there as a really good quality footballer. He would get nowhere near Ferguson's Man United midfield. Wouldn't get anywhere near it. I don't care what recency bias you've got. He would get nowhere near Scholes, Giggs, Beckham, Keane, any of that, would he? Nowhere near.
I don't think so. No.
But I'm always intrigued as to why fans just can't see past last weekend or last season or this season. They're all spaffing about, Virgil van Dijk being the best defender ever in the Premier League. That's not true. Yeah, it just isn't true.
I don't know what it is with Virgil van Dijk, and it's not just Liverpool fans. I see so much nonsense on social media. It's like the guy just can't do any wrong. I saw a post recently that said Virgil van Dijk's redefined defending, and I couldn't ignore it. I was dead polite. I just put back saying, "Can you explain how he's redefined defending, please?" Not a Dickie Bird back, because they can't answer it, because it's just nonsense that comes out of the mouth. He hasn't redefined defending at all. He's a good player. He's not. I don't even think he's in the same league as a lot of previous defenders. It's almost like blowing smoke up his arse for the sake of it. He's a good player. He's been very good for Liverpool, but everyone keeps going about, talks all the time. He's such a leader. It's like, so does some of the other players on the pitch. Yeah. Like, let's face it, the last 2 years, he hasn't even last year. He wasn't that great last year. He's not pulling up trees this year. And he's been really good and solid in the past. He's a good player, of course he is. But it's almost
best
like
ever.
He's just different. The things that he does, it's like, no, he's not different. He just defends, and he defends well. He hasn't redefined defending. There's nothing he's done that's redefined anything. He just does the simple things really, really well.
I agree with you.
Fernandes, I think, is he's frustrating, because I think I agree with you. Sometimes he can whine, and sometimes you feel like you want more from him.
Sometimes.
But when I've really thought about it, sometimes I think he gets a hard time, because I think sometimes he is one of the only players that really tries to, especially when they've been going through it, really tries to pull them out the mire. Last season at Goodison, we were all over them, and we were comfortably leading the game, and he literally dragged them up and got the draw for them, to be honest. And it was only him that managed to do it. And I think he's been. I sometimes I find him quite interesting, in that I'd love to see if he was in a team that was doing really well, that didn't have all the baggage that was going on with United. Would you see the same player? Or would you suddenly see a player that really came and elevated himself even more? That'll be a test. That'll be interesting for me to see, because if he didn't rise to that and was in a team that was really settled and you could just play football with really good players, would you see an elevated Fernandes? If you didn't, that might tell you something about that actually he's not as good as maybe we think he is or could be. But if you saw him really raise his game, you'd be like, well, actually, this is because he's been in a team that he's been really struggling for all these years.
I'll take a liberty with your claim about the fact that he can pick the team up by its bootstraps and come back into it. When they lost 7-0 at Liverpool, he was captain. He was a disgrace.
There's definitely games where he hasn't done that, but I've seen it firsthand where he has. So I thought fair do is that. To be honest, that's you should expect that as the minimum from your captain of your team. And if you're playing for Man United, that should be a given, shouldn't it? So it's kind of half complimented when actually that should be a given of what you do on every match day for your club.
We've talked about Arsenal. We've talked about Piers Morgan's ridiculous recency bias tweet. We've introduced the concept of Man United and I guess Fernandes particularly. I just want to look at Chelsea as well. Chelsea, they've got Cole Palmer and they've got Fernandes and they've got various players. I know they're a young squad now, but you look at Chelsea under Mourinho and you look at it, Cole Palmer wouldn't, he'd make the bench if he was lucky, wouldn't he, against all the players that they had in their prime. And all I just want to think for football fans is just be better at thinking about the history of your club. Also, be a bit better about thinking that football existed before the Premier League existed, because Liverpool of the 80s and Forest of 79 and 80 and Leeds of the early 70s, these teams were different gravy, and all of them stand up to comparison with the people who are out there now. Would you agree with that, Dom?
I would implore anyone to go back and watch Liverpool from the 80s. I mean, people think football was so different in the 80s. It actually wasn't. There was some of those Liverpool teams. I mean, Kenny Dalglish. Oh my God, I
Yeah,
love Kenny Dalglish. What a player! He was my favourite player growing up because he was just. I read it. I think I mentioned on the pod once. One of the brilliant things about Kenny that he did, which people didn't realize. I think I'm not sure if he mentioned it on the recent documentary. Some of that reason why he was so good on the ball and knew where he was. He said, I'd look at shadows. I'd see where players were behind me because I measured their shadow and where they were. Brilliant things like that where you didn't even need
yeah,
to look around, so you could focus on looking forward and where your team were. But I also think people forget with that Liverpool team when they actually lost some of the good players and Dalglish was much more the player manager. When Beasley and Barnes came in and Aldridge, that team from 87,
mm,
88, some of the football they played. I mean, people think, that Pep's defined football. He hasn't, not at
no,
all. Football teams were playing brilliant football back then. Go back and watch that Liverpool team. They were fabulous. That Notts
yeah,
Forest team were also brilliant on the ball. Leeds, they were a bit of a
dirty.
dirty Leeds. And it's a shame because they had some fabulous footballers who knew better. But also go back and look at United teams from, when they won the league in 92, 93. Just unbelievable football players and
Yeah,
playing quality football. But yeah,
I can't
I
believe
think
I almost hang on. I can't believe I almost gave Leeds some credit there. I
I know.
apologise for that for anyone who said, but yeah,
To your
but
point about Chelsea as well, though, that Mourinho team that he had built was just an astonishing array of
yeah,
talent. I mean, they really were. And I'm not a Chelsea fan. I don't have a lot of time for the club.
I don't.
I just don't. I'm not. That's not against Chelsea fans. Although I've met some proper dickhead Chelsea fans over the years. I've been
Yeah,
really have, unfortunately. I hate to say that, but I just have, and I don't particularly enjoy them as a club, but they've been spoiled, I think, with the wealth of talent that's come through that club since when Abramovich bought them, and
it's an
we just
interesting
never
choice
got
of
that.
word, though, Dom. It's an interesting choice of word, the wealth of talent, because it came from the wealth of
It came from the
a
wealth
Russian
of a
a
crooked
Russian
billionaire, yeah.
crooked oligarch. Yeah, yeah,
Oligarch,
excellent.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, you forget I mean, Makaleli, Ballack, Lampard, Terry, like you were saying, Drogba. Drogba was
Yeah,
just something else. I
he was a
mean,
big game player, wasn't he, as well, Drogba? He
massive
scored
game player. I
goals
mean,
in big games, didn't
he pretty much single-handedly won the Champions League in 2013. But
he? Yeah,
didn't he?
yeah.
They were just glorious. Or was it 2012? I can't
14,
really
12,
remember.
13, yeah, something like
But
that.
yeah,
Anyway,
just the players they had. They were just fabulous. And was it was prior to that. I mean, the best player Chelsea's probably ever had, and he's just a beautiful footballer was Zola. I mean,
oh,
I'd
yeah,
implore anyone to go back and watch games with Gianfranco Zola, whether you like Chelsea or not. Just watching that player play football,
yeah,
and it's sad that he in the modern game now he'd be pushed out of it. He wouldn't be
mm,
allowed to express himself the way he does because that's slowly being pushed out of the game. And yet he was not a player that could. He was. People might disagree with me here, but he was a team player. But he was a team player because he was so individualistic that he made things happen for the team.
yeah.
Whereas teams are they're more reluctant to let players like him do what they do and trust
Yeah.
that the magic will happen. Whereas a player like him, if you'd restricted him, you'd never have seen the joy that he was as a football player.
What I'd say about Gianfranco Zola, he was so good, he was almost as good as Juninho. That's all I'll say about Gianfranco Zola. But on that note, I was going to mention some IFAB rule changes. We'll take that. In fact, I'll mention very
Just
briefly,
mention
okay?
him, yeah.
IFAB are looking at introducing some time-wasting penalties for throw-ins, free kicks, and everything. So a ticking clock. So I love the fact that they're trying to improve the time wasting tactics or reduce the time wasting tactics of teams. But I don't think if you're putting a clock on a throw in or a free kick, that's valid because I don't think it gives the defending team time to set the tactics up. Just be better at the handball, the offside, and VAR. That'll improve the game. That's all you need to do, IFAB. Get the handball rule right, get the offside rule right, and get VAR right. We don't need to stop, throw-ins. We don't need to put a ticking clock on a free kick. No one's complaining when it takes a couple of minutes for a free kick to be lined up with the wall and all that kind of thing. And the reason throw-ins don't get taken quickly is because the defenders are doing their job and marking the people who are, going to receive the ball potentially. Putting a clock on it's just going to make it just worse and more. IFAB, you're just messing with the wrong parts of football.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, mate. I don't think I've ever been to a game of football where I've had a serious problem with the amount of time it's taken to have a throw or do a free kick. A lot of the time, it's not so much the delay in terms of the team delaying it; it's the referee, because you're completely at the mercy of the referee blowing his whistle and saying, "Right, you can take the free kick," because everything has to be set up, the distance, the visible spray, all of that kind of stuff. Throw-ins can be a bit contentious now and again, depending on how far the player manages to walk up the pitch and get another 30 yards up and stuff. But it's not. There's nothing with either of those that concern me. The one that does bug me a bit, which I think could always do with a bit of a tweak and a bit of discipline on, is when the team's winning, the amount of time they take over a goal kick and they fuck around with that. So that I don't like. But other than that, I'm with you. Get the important stuff right. Deal with VAR properly. Stop with the silly bookings. Let's clean up some of the poor interpretations of the rules.
Yeah.
Violent conduct for slightly pulling someone's hair in an aerial challenge. I know it might be slightly biased, but for me that's still not.
You're not letting that one. You're not letting that one go, mate. Are you? You're not letting that one go.
To be honest, I know people are all over it. I'm like, no, it's just that's not violent conduct. When you if that was deliberate off the ball, I've got no argument with it, no matter what context it's in. But it's kind of spoiling the games, But whether you agree with the rules or not, I'll come back to the saying I always say: if you're going to have these things and keep them in, just make everything consistent. Was there a situation this week? I can't remember. Did someone slap an opposition player and they didn't even get booked? Whereas in our match, it was a slight hair pull, direct sending off, and then Grealish clapping the hands and the referee made a decision. He gets sent off. It's like, I know it's childish, but how can they be bookings and sent off when someone else is slapping an opposition player? And that's not. It's just be consistent. So I think I would like to see the governing bodies work on consistency and being better at what they do, and stop ruining the game rather than trying to bring in more little bitty things, mate.
On that note, let's finish. We don't like what IFAB are doing. We never have done. They're always doing the wrong things. They're always bringing things in to improve the game that don't actually do that. And let's see what comes next. But I don't think anyone's ever lost their shit at a game because someone's taking a little bit longer than they should do over a bloody throw-in. I totally agree with you, mate. I totally agree with you. So that has been episode 34 of the Half and Half Scarf Football Podcast with me, Nick, and my mate Dom. Thank you for your listening, watching, and we've given you a few questions today to look at, and what we'd like to do is ask you to contribute with, bogey grounds and bogey teams and what you think about Piers Morgan's stupidity around recency bias or whatever it might be. Get involved. We love talking to our people who watch and listen. We've had quite a few contributions over the last few weeks from, a number of the viewers and listeners, so we applaud that and thank you for that. We don't know what we're going to talk about in episode 35 yet because we're recording this on the 1st of February and episode 35 won't be going out until the 16th of February, so we like to keep things current. It won't be another observation on the season so far. It might be superstitions and that kind of thing. It might be, will England win the World Cup in 2026? There's a couple of other things we've got on our to-do list. We might have a guest on because I'm talking to a guy who's really interested in kind of player and supporter welfare, which I think is quite interesting. But we don't know yet. We'll sort that nearer the time. But thank you for listening and watching episode 34. As ever, like, subscribe, comment, share, but more importantly, get involved and we'd appreciate it. Thanks very much, Dom. Thanks again, mate. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, I agree, mate. Yeah, echo everything you just said. Really enjoyed these last two on observations of the season. And we'll next topic to be confirmed. Lots to think about, mate. But yeah, enjoying it. See you on the next one.
Cheers, mate. Look after yourself.
And you, mate. See you soon.
Cheers.